Okay, guys, just wanted to thank the Liberal Democrats for having me here and allowing me the chance to speak, and congratulate them and David on their winning the seat in the federal Senate. I myself am a lawyer, just as by introduction, but I also ran for the same Senate seat at the election for the Drug Law Reform Party, which was an interesting experience. And I'm still involved in drug law reform, in a movement in trying to organise people towards ending prohibition as a policy and moving to a more rational approach to drug law. From my experiences as a lawyer and as a civilian, I've seen many things that made me get involved in this movement. You know, I've seen a guy called Michael Egan who shared his story to me. He wanted to be a paramedic. He was training to be a paramedic. It was his dream. He was caught with 2 grams of marijuana, and because of a prior situation where he had been caught with 1 ecstasy tablet, he was sentenced at the Newtown court with a criminal charge, and and as a result of that, he is unable to practice as a paramedic. He stopped his training and now doesn't know what he wants to do. So we've lost someone who had a dream to help out our society, and as a result of, I would say, unfair law, cannot follow that dream. I've seen people sentenced to 5 years jail for possessing a bag of magic mushrooms that they'd picked in the Blue Mountains. I've seen at festivals dogs outside the festival gates sniffing people as they enter and arresting young people as they go into these festivals. You know, and as a result of that, I've seen young people prior to going into festivals taking all their drugs in one go to avoid the danger of avoid the possible criminal sanctions of being arrested. As a result of that, I've seen those same people overdosing in the festivals, being taken away in ambulances. And then as a result of that, I've also seen at the courts 300 people charged with possessing 1 or 2 tablets of ecstasy, and the judge sentencing them in groups of 10 to get rid of it because there's so many, clogging up the courts. You know, I've had situations where I've heard of circumstances where people are overdosed on the road and their friends are too scared to call an ambulance because of the possible criminal sanctions that result from that. I have a friend whose mother had cancer, and she was after each chemo session she was in such pain and had nausea and couldn't eat that her daughter would roll her marijuana cigarette to deal with that pain. It was the only thing that helped. Yet to buy that marijuana she had to do it from a drug dealer, and both her and her mother were criminals in the eyes of our society. I think that for all these reasons and more, that prohibition is a failure as a policy. The drugs are a social and health issue, not a criminal one. I mean, prohibition, I like to use the example of prohibition of alcohol in America as an example. When this policy came in, it didn't stop people drinking alcohol. It merely pushed the sale of alcohol underground into the hands of criminals like Al Capone, etc. The government mixed out on the taxed dollars and started spending millions trying to enforce an impossible law. The alcohol was made underground by people, and it was stronger and more dangerous as a result, and there were more incidences of people suffering alcohol poisoning and other related situations. And all the while people kept drinking, but this time they were drinking as criminals. Prohibition of drugs is the same. It doesn't stop people using drugs, it just criminalises them for their actions, and all the other subsidiary issues that I've raised, such as increasing the danger associated with drugs, allowing them to be stronger, making people buy them unregulated from drug dealers having no idea what's in them, and of course criminalising people and wasting money in an effort to try and enforce these laws. As I said, drugs are a health and social issue, not a criminal one. And I guess to a group of libertarians, I should mention the libertarian perspective. I myself have libertarian values, and I think it's important to mention that component of the drug law debate, which often gets overlooked. John Stuart Mill, the famous philosopher, said that I have the freedom to do with my body and mind what I will, and that is part of liberty. And I would suggest that it's something that we don't consider. The drug users are themselves people, and drugs have been demonised, and that why is it not an overreach of government to say what I can use, what substance I can ingest? to say some are legal, some are not, in some sort of arbitrary law. And I think it's important to admit that drugs can be dangerous. They can be destructive, but many things are dangerous. Fatty foods can be dangerous. Cars can be dangerous. Things can be dangerous. To make them illegal, or as Abraham Lincoln said, to prohibit things makes criminal those things which are not themselves criminal acts. I personally believe it's a human rights issue, and that's why I like the civil rights movement before the sexuality, marriage equality debate today. I think this is the next great human rights issue, whether or not people have that right to choose what they ingest and whether or not they should be criminals as a result. I think it's also important to mention that we're part of a worldwide movement, and this is changing today. From Uruguay, which has legalised drugs in South America, legalised cannabis, and much of South America, which has said, hang on, the policy of prohibition that America has encouraged us to follow in the past has not helped us at all. Colorado, as you've heard in Washington from the hemp party, they've legalised this year cannabis. And I believe, and I think that's one reason I was very impressed with the Liberal Democrat Party was that they have a positive policy and approach to cannabis, and that's great to see. And parts of Europe, of course, Switzerland, Spain, Holland, have all had various types of movements away from prohibition as a policy. I'd like to finish on Portugal, which for 10 years has decriminalised the possession of all drugs. And that's a policy that I would like to add towards, that I would like to see happen in the next 5 or 10 years, that we see, hang on, possessing a small quantity of drugs shouldn't be a crime. In Portugal, there's been no discernible increase in the use as a result of this. All it's done is stopped criminalising people, it's reduced the number of people going to court for these small crimes, and it's in fact reduced a lot of the overdoses and deaths through drugs. So I would love to see that happen, because if possession of small quantities of drugs was not prohibited, was not a crime in the Crimes Act, you would allow people like Michael Egan to follow his dream of being a paramedic, and yeah, all right, no, nearly done, and you would allow. You wouldn't see dogs at festivals arresting people. You wouldn't see people being forced to take their drugs in a dangerous way to avoid that detection. And I think, that's all I really got to say. So, thanks. Yeah.